Why did the Stoics teach the idea that everything happens for a reason? And why does that idea still stick around today? Well, I think there are two parts to that question. So let's split it up and start with the first part. Why do we even have this idea that everything happens for a reason? Well, I think the Stoics believed that everything happens for a good reason, and they were actually very explicit about what that good reason was. It's because everything happens according to the order of nature. Seneca says nature is being moved by a certain necessity. Nature has set certain bounds and cannot be transgressed. Everything happens according to the same laws and none can alter or change them. Epictetus says everything that happens is according to nature, whether it is an earthquake or an edict of a king. If you don't like it, just remember it's natural. It's not human action that causes things to happen. It's divine providence. The Stoics believed that ultimately everything happened because it was part of God's plan, which they also refer to as fate. Epictetus says, if you want to talk about something happening for a reason, then remember that you are part of a causal chain that goes all the way back to the gods themselves, who are the source of all things. But why would this be important to the Stoics? Why would they care about the chain of causation going all the way back to the gods? Well, because it gives us a sense of security in the face of all the chaos and randomness that happens in life. Because if everything happens according to the order of nature and it is all part of God's plan, then you don't need to worry about it. You know that no matter what happens, it's exactly what was supposed to happen. And so we should embrace whatever comes our way and accept it without complaining, because it is all part of the divine order. The second part of your question was, why does this idea still stick around today? Why do we still say things like everything happens for a reason, even though most of us do not believe in divine providence anymore? Well, I think we still say things like everything happens for a reason for two reasons. One is that it comforts us. It gives us a sense of control in a world that can often seem chaotic and unpredictable. The other reason we cling to this idea is because it makes us feel special. If everything happens for a reason, then there must be a reason that things happen the way that they did in my life. There must be a reason that I met this person or had this experience or made this decision. And when we start thinking like this, we start seeing coincidences as signs, random events as meaningful, and we start feeling like we are the protagonists of our own stories. But the problem with this way of thinking is that it can lead us to become complacent. If we think that everything happens for a reason, then we might think that we don't have any control over our lives at all. We might think that there is no point in trying to improve ourselves or our situation, because everything is just fated to happen anyway. And that's what we see in the Euthyphro dilemma, right? Either God has a plan for everything, and then we are just puppets, or else we have free will and then our lives are meaningless because nothing happens for a reason. Well, the Stoics wrestled with this problem and they came up with some interesting solutions. Seneca said, "My life has its moments of meaning and value because I choose to find those moments. It's up to us to find the reasons for things, not the other way around." The Stoics believed that we could make our own choices and that we were responsible for our own actions, but they also believed that everything happened for a reason. So how can we reconcile those two ideas? Well, I think the answer lies in the difference between fatalism and free will. Fatalism is the belief that everything is predetermined and that we have no control over our lives. Free will is the belief that we can make our own choices and that we are responsible for our actions. But what the Stoics saw was that these two ideas aren't necessarily incompatible. In fact, they are complementary. Our ability to make choices doesn't negate the fact that everything happens for a reason. And the fact that everything happens for a reason doesn't negate our ability to make choices. We can believe in both fatalism and free will at the same time. And when we do that, we can live our lives more freely and more responsibly. We can take responsibility for our actions without worrying that we are just following a predetermined path. So how does this apply to our lives today? Well, I think the lesson here is that we shouldn't worry too much about the reasons for things. We shouldn't try to control everything that happens to us because ultimately that's not up to us. Instead, we should focus on making the most of the opportunities that come our way and accepting the challenges that we face. We should be grateful for everything that happens to us because we can learn from it and grow because of it. That's why Marcus Aurelius says, everything that happens to you is meant to happen. Stop being distressed and ask yourself what you would do if it had to happen again, what you would do differently next time, what you would do better. He's not saying that we should passively accept everything that happens to us. He's saying that we should learn from it and grow because of it. We should be proactive in our response to adversity and we should strive to make the best of every situation. That's the only way we can truly be free. But what about the people who suffered needlessly? The people who lost everything? The people who never got a chance to learn from their experiences? Well, that's where free will comes in. The Stoics believed that we could make our own choices, but they also believed that everything happened for a reason. So how can we reconcile those two ideas? Well, I think the answer lies in the difference between fatalism and free will. Fatalism is the belief that everything is predetermined and that we have no control over our lives. Free will is the belief that we can make our own choices and that we are responsible for our actions. But what the Stoics saw was that these two ideas aren't necessarily incompatible. In fact, they are complementary. Our ability to make choices doesn't negate the fact that everything happens for a reason. And the fact that everything happens for a reason doesn't negate our ability to make choices. We can believe in both fatalism and free will at the same time. And when we do that, we can live our lives more freely and more responsibly. We can take responsibility for our actions without worrying that we are just following a predetermined path. And I know that some of you watching this video probably disagree with the idea that everything happens for a reason. You probably think that there is such a thing as random events and that sometimes bad things just happen to good people. And I want to acknowledge that I don't think that the Stoics would disagree with that. They would say that these random events and bad things that happen to good people are just part of the fabric of life. They are part of the cosmic order, and we have to accept them and make the best of them. But that doesn't mean that we should be passive in the face of adversity. It just means that we should be proactive in our response to it. We should learn from it and grow because of it. That's the only way we can truly be free. What do you think? Do you think that everything happens for a reason? Let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please subscribe and check out my podcast, available on various platforms. Thanks for watching.